Hey, what's going on, family? I'm super excited you decided to click that play button to tune in and figure out who Trent is and what God is doing in my life. I think the most powerful question when you ask who is Trent, it goes back to the category of identity. Identity have so much power in determining who we become and also to what we handle and decide to deal with. I tell people that the enemy messed up when he allowed me to find my identity as a son of the Father. I think there's so much power when it comes down to identity within the kingdom when sons or daughters find out that they are a true son or a daughter of the Father, because we understand that what makes a daughter or a son of the Father is that they're a servant. So I tell people oftentimes that before the title, the position, or whatever God is doing in my life, that I choose to serve God relentlessly, full-heartedly, with boldness, because I know that's what God has birthed me to do. Growing up, my family has been super supportive and also very pushing in what I do because they know that my heart is to follow God. At a very young age, my mom tells a story of how I used to ask for a cross to wear to church at the age of 2, just because I knew the power of knowing the Father for myself. My dad actually was the first one who allowed me to meet Christ for the first time. I tell people that I gave my life to Christ 2 times. They're very symbolic and also too prophetic over my life. The first time I gave myself to Christ, I followed my natural father to the altar at the age of about 8 or 9, just because I trusted the steps of my natural father and the decisions that he makes. So he allowed me to meet the Father that way. But I met the Father, the true Father, for myself and the voice of God when I was in college, when I was going through hard times. I tell people I'm very bold about my ministry. When I grew up, I always said in church, but when I got my taste of freedom, God gives us the choice to free will and allow us to make our own decision. When I went to college, I became the wild boy. I did everything. I drunk, I smoked, I slept. I did every single thing that was not of God. And it put me in a place where I was in turmoil of my identity and what God had called me to do. And I can remember I was down at the altar praying, and I heard this voice of God speaking to me. I was like, wait a minute, is this myself? But I knew there was so much more. And at that moment, that's when I decided, you know what? There's a bigger God who is more worthy of what you're going through. And I decided, hey, at the young age, I gave myself to Christ after following my natural father. But this time, I want to give myself completely to the Father with a full yes. And that's when I met the spiritual father who guided me completely in my walk. For myself, I tell people that what I've been called to do is to help people build their vision that God has given them. Oftentimes, we look at the second man as a person that is losing, but I think the second man always wins because he knows who's first, which is the Father. So God has really placed me. Yes, I preach, I prophesy, I build, I do graphic design, but I really want to be assistants to those who pursue the Father. The first time that I ever knew that I was called or chosen, it sounds kind of strange, but I was hanging out in my parents' backyard. They had a hammock and I was swinging, and I heard this voice that came from myself, but I knew it was something bigger and greater. I was about 11 years old, and I started to cry. And from that point, I realized that there was so much more to life, and that there was a bigger source, and that there was a bigger Father. Each time I tell people that I accidentally preached was an oratorical competition where I was supposed to be speaking, but yet the Holy Spirit took over, and I started speaking that was not on my notes. And that's when I knew there was so much more, because I remember I was like, okay, Trent, you not write this down. Why are you talking like this? Did not win the competition at all. I definitely lost the competition. If you were to ask me what season I am in, I would tell you that I'm the season of embracing the full wind of God. That was good to me. I'm not going to preach this thing, but I really do believe that there's so much power in trusting the wind of God, and that comes down to being able to submit yourself to the move of God. I tell God now I'm in this place in my life that God, wherever you send me or where you need me to be, then I will follow, because I understand that I may not see it now. I may not have a map in my hand, but I know who you are, and I know that you're a Father that will never leave me or forsake me. I know you as Jehovah Jireh, and I know that God has not forgotten about his sons and daughters. He never will. So I learned to embrace the wind of God, which means wherever he needs me to be, whatever the assignment is, I learned to trust him and trust the plans of him, and tell God, place me where you need me to be, where you need me to flourish, that you get glorified, not self, but where God gets glorified. So I tell people, like I said, that I'm embracing the full wind of God, because I know that when God speaks to the wind, that peace will be still, but you got to allow the wind to take you where God needs you to be. So I tell people, like I said, I'm trying not to preach this thing, yo. I'm just trying to introduce myself. But I tell people that I am embracing the full wind of God.